Mute myself. Okay. Thank you for joining. My name is Luke. I'm with Essential TV. And if you watched at the beginning of season 6, some associates and myself did a number of periscopes the day after The Walking Dead. And so I hope we'll see some familiar profile names. Um, my friend Ricky is not here because Ricky has a small child now, and Ricky does not get to sleep. And so Ricky didn't come into work today, but he's with us in spirit. And my other associate, Pete, well, he was a college boy, so he's off at school. So today you've just got me. Who am I? My name is Luke Watson, and I run Essential TV. And Essential TV, I lovingly refer to as a binge watcher's TV guide. And so what we do is we recap TV shows, episodes, so that if you miss something, you get caught up very quickly. We have episode guides that are really built for binge watching in the streaming world, where every episode matters and builds and builds and builds. And so we also have an array of Twitter profiles. So we have Essential Dead for The Walking Dead. We'll have Essential Arrow, Essential Flash, Essential Gotham, all these different shows. And so we retweet news. We post casting announcements, previews of upcoming episodes, and that's what we do. But today what we're doing is we're here talking about last night's episode of The Walking Dead. So if you have not seen last night's episode of The Walking Dead and you don't want any spoilers, you should watch something else, perhaps The Walking Dead. So I just want to say that I was really, in the beginning of season 6, thank you, the beginning of season 6, if you remember, it started so strong. It was just like action, crazy from episode 1, 2, 3. And then it hit that episode with Morgan, where it was all his flashback with Eastman, and it just like hit the brakes and it got very slow. And then it built up a little bit towards the mid-season finale, and it ends on Rick and his friends covered in guts walking out of the house and Sam asking for his mom. And so since it came back with the mid-season premiere 3 episodes ago, it's been fantastic in my opinion. Bonjour to you as well. So let me know what you think so far. But my opinion is that we didn't see Morgan from 2 episodes. No, we're going to see Morgan next week. Next week they're going to go back to Alexandria, and in the sneak peek they showed from The Talking Dead last night, you can see that there's going to be a town meeting, and Morgan looks very unhappy. But we'll get to that. So I really like the pacing so far since the mid-season premiere, and I think that the show is finally hitting its stride. After 6.5 seasons, the show is like finally being very consistently good, and not like extreme over-the-top crazy like the beginning of season 6, but rather like the characters are doing things, and they're going places, and they're evolving, and it's been very satisfying this season. And so now we're getting built up to this big Negan confrontation that everyone's been waiting for. All these comic book fans have been waiting since the beginning, really, for Negan to finally be introduced. So if you have not read the comics, if you know little about this, Negan is often described, he's like the governor. If you've watched the show, you know the governor very well. And Negan is like the governor, but much, much worse. And so who's he going to kill? That's the question. In the comics, Negan is infamously introduced by killing a main character, like right off the bat. Pun intended. That's actually a quote they used last night, because Negan's favorite weapon is a bat, a baseball bat named Lucille. And Lucille makes a friend in his first introduction in the comic books, and I think they're going to do the same thing in the TV show, except maybe it's not going to be the same character that gets killed. I don't really want to tell you any more about that because I don't want to spoil anything for the comic book people or the people that will read the comic books, but you can expect that in order for the TV show to live up to the introduction of Negan, somebody we know very well is going to die. I think I would be shocked if they do not kill a major character. It might be Glenn. I have some question about whether Glenn will have another brush with death since the whole infamous dumpster incident. To answer your question, Negan is not a friend of Jesus. Negan is he's the leader of the Saviors, and the Saviors are the group that, if you remember, the motorcycle guys that Daryl destroys with the rocket launcher. They're Negan's guys. They say everything you own belongs to Negan now, and your mints and your glove box and your guns and that great vest with the angel wings, they're all Negan's. And Daryl takes care of them very quickly. But then last night's episode, where we meet the Hilltop community, that's where Jesus lives. And they're being terrorized by Negan's men. Basically, Negan is a bunch of his group, the Saviors. They're a lot of thugs. And so they're telling the Hilltop people, hey, everything you have, you give us half. And maybe we'll let you live. And so Rick and gang, of course, they say, well, Negan, how tough could he be? And Daryl says, yeah, I blew them up with a rocket launcher, in not so many words. So they say, no problem. We're going to go sort out these Saviors and this Negan problem for you. Just give us half of everything in the meantime. But I think that we're going to find that there's a much greater cost. As someone mentioned, sorry I missed the name, Daryl has been rumored as maybe somebody who will get killed by Negan. We don't know if that's true yet. Do I think they're misjudging Negan? Yeah, I think that they are overconfident. These guys, Rick, Daryl, all these guys, they dealt with the governor, who, let's be honest, in the comic books, the governor is much scarier than in TV show. In the TV show, I'm watching the whole governor season, and I'm thinking, you know what? It doesn't look so bad. I really don't think I'd mind living in Woodbury. Like, the governor was not that bad of a dude compared to how they established him in the comic books. And so I think they're going to make Negan at least as terrifying as he is in the comics to sort of rectify that, make him a much bigger bad guy. And so all of our regular characters, yeah, they're overconfident because they've never dealt with someone as bad as we can expect him to be. And Negan, does Negan have an army? I don't know that it would be classified as an army, but he certainly has a large group of thugs who follow him and will kill for him. And so we can expect that there'll be some exchanges of lives. And unfortunately, I think that means some of our favorite main characters are at risk. I don't know if it'll be Glenn. I don't know if it'll be Daryl. I don't know who it'll be. But I'll tell you from last night's episode, I think Abraham's days are numbered. Because anytime The Walking Dead dedicates as much time to a second-tier character, not to diminish him, Abraham's a great character, but he's not your main guy. He's not Rick. He's not Daryl. He's not Michonne. He's not Glenn. Abraham's a great guy. He's been around for a while, but I think his days are numbered because they gave him a lot of attention last night. And I remember whenever they started giving T-Dog a little bit of attention. They ignored T-Dog for like 2 seasons. He finally has an episode where he has some lines and see ya, T-Dog. That's what this show tends to do with people. So I think that the more we get to know about Abraham, the less he has to look forward to in the future. And I liked the shot right at the end of the episode. Yes, I think that one or more of them is going to die when they fight with the Saviors, and I think it's Abraham. That's my guess. If I'm a betting man, I'm putting my money on Abraham getting killed right away as they go and take out the Saviors, and then they realize, hey, we have a real threat here because he's a tough guy and he's a military guy, and they took him out. But he's getting on the bus whenever they're heading back to Alexandria. He's got the gun. He looks like contemplative, like, we're going to go to war and we might not return. And all the talk about, making the pancakes with Glenn, foreshadowing, things like that, his whole Rosita or Sasha thing, it's like it doesn't matter because it looks like they're going to kill you, my man. And that's unfortunate because I love his one-liners. He famously asked, who's Negan? I think he's going to meet Negan very soon. And I don't know. What do you think? Did it seem a little suspicious last night whenever they spent so much time on Abraham, whenever they've never spent that much time on him really before? Let me know. I think he's goner. I think he's a goner. What do I think about Rick and Michonne? I think it's logical. I love these two characters. I think they're great together. They've practically been together, although not officially romantic, for a long time. And I know there's a lot of people that have just been dying for this to happen, for them to finally get together officially. And I'm cool with it. I mean, it's not, to me, The Walking Dead is not about a love story. It's about survival. I think that's one of the things that's really appealing about Daryl as a character, is that even though people are all about Daryl and Carol or Daryl and Beth, it's like, dude's just a survivor. And I think he realizes in the context of this world that getting to the next day is more important, or getting to the next day is the most important thing. And so I think the whole Rick Michonne romance thing, it's great. I mean, maybe it gives us some more story potential, gives them something more to talk about, gives us some light moments, which I think are going to be very important as we take on the Saviors and Negan, because it's going to get pretty dark, pretty violent. But I'm not really, it doesn't excite me. It's great. But I don't know. I know people are very excited about Rick and Michonne. Let me know what you think. Is this something that you've been dying for? Is it something that, do you think that it's maybe a bad sign? Because it seems like when people find any sort of happiness in this world, that it's short-lived. I don't know. Could Rick and Michonne be parted in some way, shape, or form? Perhaps by a baseball bat named Lucille. I don't know. I think that I agree. They are cute, and they do belong together, I think. They're very well suited for each other in this world. And I like that they've been living as a family. Basically, them and Carl and Judith, they're a great family. I loved in this episode last night where Jesus says to Carl about his mom and dad are upstairs getting dressed. Because they just hooked up like the episode before, and like it's already mom and dad, and it feels very right. And I'm okay with that. And I don't know, did anyone miss Lori? Because you certainly don't miss Lori now. Come on, there's got to be one of you. Did anyone miss Lori? I think that we'll see what happens, though. Are they going to now, will one of them stay behind when one of them goes out attacking Negan? Like, how does that change decision-making? If the leader is now romantically involved with another one of the very capable lieutenants, really. Thank you, Najee2A, for your insightful comment. So I want to talk a little bit about the Hilltop community, because this is another thing we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for Rick and Michonne. We've been waiting for Jesus to be revealed. We knew that he was cast a long time ago, and we also knew that Gregory, who's the leader of the Hilltop community, had been cast a long time ago. And so we met Gregory. Bit of a dick. Does anyone like Gregory? It's like, I loved how when he was talking to Maggie, he was so dismissive and he kept calling her Natalie. I just thought that was hilarious because she kept her composure. And then by the end of the episode, after this guy's been stabbed, he's been saved by Rick and his crew, and he's still dismissive of Maggie, but she's basically like, you know what, I've got all the leverage now. And I think that I love seeing that side of Maggie, where she can be the diplomat, but she can be also very tough. He is super arrogant. He lives in a historic mansion on top of a hill with subjects around him. If he didn't start arrogant, he probably found himself arrogant very quickly. Labeled him Hilltop Dick. That he is. That he is. Someone mentioned Maggie. Is Maggie going to die? And I've been saying that actually for a long time, because people have been saying, well, maybe Negan will kill Glenn. And I said, no. If they're going to introduce Negan and they want to make him as big and bad as possible, how can they possibly do that? They could have him kill a pregnant woman. How much worse can you get? So I'm really kind of fearful for Maggie, because she's been great so far, especially last night. They're building her up to be a real leader. And I think that there's a very good chance that the show will take it as far as they possibly can, and maybe it's her head on the block. Maybe Maggie's the one that meets Lucille, and think about how devastating that would be to the group, especially after last night, and they're all about the pregnancy, and here's the sonogram, and all these talks. It seems very hopeful. So there's all this hopefulness while they're going off to war with Negan. Anyway, I would be fearful if I were Maggie. I think I'd be more fearful for Maggie than for Glenn, to tell you the truth. And so I think that for the most part, I mean, that's what happened. We met the Hilltop community. We met Gregory. We're going to go to war with Negan. A lot happens in this episode that basically sets up even more happening, and I'm very happy about that. I feel like the rest of the season, if it stays on this pace, we're really building towards something spectacular. The introduction of Negan could very well create the best finale, season finale in The Walking Dead history. I think the Terminus finale, where they're locked in the boxcar, was the previous best. But nobody really died there. So you think she might lose her child but not die. That's a good point. I think that would be something that even if Negan isn't the one that... If Negan doesn't kill Maggie, his guys or something could be the result of her losing the child. And that could also be very emotional. And so I think that's a good point. I just want to ask one question. Where have the wolves gone? Right? They set up these wolves for a long time. I remember they went to Noah's community and it said "Wolves not far" painted on the side of an abandoned vehicle. And we saw these walkers with W's carved in their foreheads. For like a whole season, they're setting up these wolves. And then remember, Aaron and Daryl, they get trapped. They go into the wolf trap that Morgan saves them from. And we're thinking, wow, these guys are like the MacGyvers of the Walker apocalypse. These wolves are using walkers as weapons and setting traps. And then we get this one crazy episode where they come running into Alexandria with their axes and their machetes, and Carol pretty much kills them all. But then they're gone, except for this one guy who Morgan takes captive, who we get to know, maybe we get to like, you know. He was winning some people over by the end, but now, like, are the wolves gone? Are they done? I'd really like to know that. If I could talk to one of the Walking Dead producers or writers right now, yes, Carol is a badass. Did Carol scare away all the wolves? Because I don't think they're working with the Saviors. I don't think they're working with Negan. He didn't kill them all off. There's a lot of them out there still, and they certainly gave us the impression that maybe there was more left at home. They might have killed a lot of them off, but it just feels like I'll be very disappointed if the wolves don't come up again, because there was a lot of build. And if that's the only thing that happens with them, it's like a real waste of story. And I feel like they did this, it was a waste whenever they introduced the prisoners in season 3. Because, hey, here's all these people, these 5 or 6 prisoners that have been secluded from the apocalypse. They don't know what's going on. And now they're introduced into the story with our regular characters. They kill one off real quick. They kill 2 off real quick. They kill them all very much right within the span of a couple of episodes. There goes all your story potential. We don't really know anything about these prisoners and their backstory. Axel's the only one that hangs around for any length of time, and the governor just pops him in the head, which was a great scene, but it's like when he died, all the story potential for these prisoners entering this world left too. And I felt like that was really a short-sighted thing for the writers to do, and I'm afraid they're doing something similar with the wolves, where there's a lot of potential. There's this other group. They're very savage. They have their code, their ethos, whatever it is, that this one captive had been talking about for so long. And if we don't see them again, I will be very disappointed. I think that now that we're getting into Negan and Savior territory, we're going to be so focused on that. Maybe the wolves don't come up again for a while, but hello. Hi from the US of A as well. So if you're just joining, we've been chatting about last night's episode of The Walking Dead, which aired in the US, so maybe you haven't seen it yet. But I'm going to start to wrap this up. Unless you have any questions, talk to me. This is a back and forth thing. This is how it works. My buddies that I normally talk to, they aren't here, so I'm talking to you. And it's not nice to ignore. Comment. I want to hear what you think. Are you happy? What's the deal with Abraham? You're probably joining a little later. I was saying earlier on that I think that they're really foreshadowing that Abraham's days are numbered. And it's because last night they spent so much time focusing on him and his quandary of, do I stay with Rosita? What's going on with Sasha? Here's a necklace. Like, these are all the telltale signs. If you are not a major character and you get this much attention in a show like The Walking Dead, that means they're going to kill you very soon. But they're building you up here so that when they kill you, the audience really cares. Yes, Abraham, well, he fell for Sasha in the beginning of this season, but like now he comes back to Alexandria and he's still with Rosita. So what's going on there? But I'm afraid what's going to happen is that Abraham's going to get killed when they go fight Negan, which it looks like they're heading there next episode, but maybe they don't actually get into the battle until the following episode. Regardless, within the next 1 or 2 episodes, we're going to have some kind of confrontation with Negan's guys, the Saviors. And I think Abraham's the guy that's going to go. He did lose the necklace, and I think that's foreshadowing. I think that they're telling us, I think the writers are saying, Abraham is on his way out. Enjoy the time you have with him. Enjoy his one-liners and his unique way of describing the world around him while you can. And it's unfortunate because I really like Abraham, but we think we know that Negan's going to kill a major character right away when he's introduced. Although the rumor is that Negan will not be introduced until the finale, the season finale. And so I don't think Abraham's going to last to the season finale. I think he gets killed earlier. And so I think that Negan's going to end up killing someone, probably someone big. I think, like, when I think of Walking Dead characters, there's your top tier. There's Rick, there's Daryl, there's Carol, there's Carl. There's some other people that don't kind of rhyme and fit that flow. And then there's, like, Abraham, Sasha. I guess down here you've got, like, I would say Rosita is a step below that. She hasn't had much time. But I think that Negan's going to kill someone up here. I think that he has to really be established as the baddest ass in the apocalypse and someone that is not to be messed with. And it might be Daryl. The only thing that the biggest rumor is that it's going to be Daryl. I guess you could say the biggest rumor is that it's going to be Glenn. But after the dumpster thing, I think everyone's focused on Daryl. And so my only thing is, I'm thinking about this from a pure business perspective, right? If I'm AMC, if I'm The Walking Dead, it's not a good way to think about it, but it's true. Who sells the most merchandise, right? Is Glenn selling more merchandise, or is Daryl selling more merchandise? Are people buying more Daryl action figures? Are they buying more Daryl angel wing vests? Are they buying more crossbows? You know, I think that Daryl is probably a cash cow for merchandising. And so I think that even though from a story perspective, it would be really huge and devastating to fans, of course, but huge for the story to kill Daryl, I don't think they're doing that unless Norman Reedus says, hey, guys, I'm done here. Just write me out in a big way. And he's out there, he's getting movie roles. There's a very good chance that Norman Reedus might be trying to move towards the door. In which case, what a way to go than to be the guy that Negan kills. But I don't know. I hope not as well. I really like Daryl. I like that he's the one major character who doesn't exist in the comic book, so he's a bit of a wild card. We can oftentimes look at what happens in the comics and pretty much know what's going to happen in the show, but with Daryl you can't because there's nothing to look at. But let's be honest. The first half of this season barely had any Daryl moments. It was like almost Daryl-less. There's the one episode where Daryl helps the people who steal his crossbow, steal his motorcycle, and that was not a good Daryl episode. And that's really the only thing that we've seen with him until last week's episode where Rick and Daryl go on their excellent adventure, which was fantastic. I'd have to say that's one of the most fun episodes I've seen of The Walking Dead in years. But now they're finally bringing Daryl back. But is it like what I'm saying with Abraham, and they're trying to re-establish him? Are they giving us all the fun times we could possibly have with Daryl because they know his time is coming to an end? I don't know. I'm afraid for Daryl's life. I'm afraid for Abraham's life. How many episodes are left? That's a great question. I will tell you in a moment. Um, we just watched episode number... We watched episode number 11. There's 16 in this season. And so we have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We have 5 episodes left. And I don't know. I think we're going to lose someone between now and then. There's a lot of comments now. Jesus, it's a cool man. I think Jesus is pretty cool. Daryl did call Jesus a prick, and he was a bit of a prick. Their whole chase with the truck, did you see that with the Benny Hill music? So if you didn't see it, it was fantastic. The whole scene last week, whenever Daryl and Rick are chasing Jesus around this field, and the truck goes into the water, somebody in the Talking Dead suggested that it should be set to Benny Hill music. And, of course, the internet obliged. And it's fantastic. If you haven't seen this, I shared it on Essential TV. Go to essential.tv. That's our website. And just look at our Walking Dead post. You'll see it there. It's fantastic. And I think I have a hard time watching that episode now and not picturing it with Benny Hill music. It was just meant to be. But savor the good times, because we're going to war. And there will be no Benny Hill music when we go to fight Negan. And within 5 episodes, I tell you, within 3 episodes, somebody's going to die. Probably Abraham. And then in the season finale, somebody's going to die. Maybe Maggie, maybe Glenn, maybe Daryl. I don't really know who else would really have the weight. Yeah, it's pretty nerve-wracking. Is there anyone else? Michonne? Michonne would be huge, but I don't think she's going to go. I don't think she's ready to go yet. I think it's going to be either Daryl or Glenn or Maggie that meets Negan's baseball bat. And I think Maggie would be the most shocking because she's pregnant. And I think Daryl would be the most devastating to fans. And I think that Glenn, it's like after they pulled that stunt with the dumpster, I don't know, man. Glenn is just like a magical character who cannot be killed. And the dumpster thing, I think, it's like a real jumping the shark kind of moment. A lot of people were so relieved that Glenn was still alive, but to me, it's not. I like Glenn. I didn't want him as a character to leave, but for them to make it look so obvious like he was killed, and then to backtrack on us after, what was it, 3 weeks? It was just cheap. I'm not into that. I think the writers really squandered a lot of the goodwill of the fans. And I don't trust them. I saw that comment too, that when Andrew Lincoln read the script for the season finale, he was sick to his stomach. So it's going to be a brutal, brutal season finale. Nobody likes Gregory. I don't think Gregory's mom would like Gregory. Gregory was well established as a colossal jerk. And I kind of like that because he can be a jerk and not be a bad guy. Like, this Hilltop community, they need to work together. They don't need to like each other. So I kind of like the fact that we might meet a guy in this world who's like a straight-up jerk, who isn't trying to kill us. There's room for that in the world. And we haven't really seen a character like that except for maybe Carol's husband in season 1, Ed. He was terrible. Everyone hated Ed, but he wasn't trying to kill us. And so I like the Gregory character. I mean, I think he's unlikable, but I like that he's unlikable. And he was hitting on Maggie. And I love the scenes with him and Maggie, because Maggie is like totally a diplomat, and she's really living up to this baton that Deanna passed on to her. And this my favorite moment. You're right. When Rick stabs the guy, he kills the guy. What was his name? Was it Ethan? Someone mentioned Ethan earlier. Stabs the guy in the neck, stands up, covered in blood, beard is red. What? Well, of course. That's what Rick does. Meet Rick Grimes. That's his MO. I loved it. That was like the best moment in the entire episode. And it just epitomizes Rick. And that's from the comic books. Last night's episode, I'm actually not up to date with the comic books, but I've seen bits and pieces here and there, and that was, I know, from the comic books. And it seems like a lot of times in the show, some of the best moments that we don't realize if we're TV people are really lifted straight from the pages. And that also should worry you about Negan. So, I actually don't know if the comics are past Negan yet. He was introduced in issue number 100, but I think that they're past Negan. I just don't know. I'm not up to date. Sir, you don't need to call me sir, but I will be happy to answer your question. So ask me your question. What I read the comics up to the prison, but I didn't get any farther than that. I read the comics enough to appreciate the comics, but I don't know. I'm a TV guy. I love the show. I have a hard time. I can't keep up with the comics. The 100. I can't really speak to the 100. I don't watch the 100. I hear it's good. I watch other CW shows. I like what they're doing with The Flash and Arrow, but I don't watch the 100, so sorry, I can't speak to that. I watch The Walking Dead. I'm happy Gotham is coming back tonight. What else? Better Call Saul I'm behind on, but I love. And AMC does a lot of good shows. And The Walking Dead is finally living up to our expectations again. Yes, the governor was bad, but Negan is far worse. And in the comic books, I'll tell you this. Spoiler alert, if you think that someday you're going to go back and read the comics and you don't want to hear a major comic moment that actually happened a long time ago, it's not a spoiler for the show. Here it is. So when the governor is introduced in the comic books, he captures Rick and Glenn. And the first thing he does is he throws down Rick's hand and he chops it off. So in the comic books, for a long time, for years, Rick Grimes has no right hand. When he's holding his gun like this, he's actually holding his gun like this. So they talked about this, I think. They didn't mention it specifically because they didn't want to spoil it in The Talking Dead. But Robert Kirkman had mentioned, and maybe it was an interview somewhere else, that he actually learned that in the show it was a do-over because Rick losing his hand so early in the comics was a big mistake for him. Because whenever they go to draw a panel and like Rick needs to climb on top of a van or something, they think, well, wait a second, how's he doing this? Because he's got a gun and he's got one hand. So in the comic books, your main character having one hand has been a real problem. And so one of the reasons that I think they did not introduce this in the TV show when the governor was introduced is because, well, they're going to keep Rick around as long as possible. They're going to keep Andrew Lincoln around. It's going to be hard for every episode to hide his hand. Andrew Lincoln is a great actor. I'm sure he's very dedicated to his craft. He's not that dedicated to his craft. He's going to have a hand, and it's going to have to be hidden in every single scene. And so Rick is not losing his hand in the show. And I tell you this. If in the TV show Rick Grimes ever loses his hand, that means that within the season, Andrew Lincoln is leaving the show. Because they would only do that if they know that they're not going to have to keep covering for a missing hand that's actually there for years and years to come. Although I liked what they did with Merle, and they covered that up nicely. But Merle was only around for a short time. I thought he was going to lose it a couple episodes back, too. This was another gripe that I had with the beginning of this season. So during the whole Glenn dumpster thing, actually it's the same episode, I think. It looks like Glenn's been eaten, and then it cuts to Rick, and he's running from all these walkers, this huge amount of walkers, and he gets into this RV, and it's like, oh no, Rick is trapped. And he had cut his hand earlier, and he was bleeding really badly. They kept showing his hand. They kept showing his hand. Anyone that knew the comics thought, well, they're foreshadowing he's going to lose his hand. And then the next time we see Rick, no RV, no walker herd, my hand's a little sore, but I'm okay. It's like, what happened? They never showed how he escaped the RV. So why did they spend so much time showing his hand, showing him run to the RV, showing it surrounded by walkers? It's just like lazy writing. I wanted to see that. I was waiting for them to show that. I'm like, after they talked about Glenn being killed, and we were like, is Glenn, was he dead? Was he not dead? Well, he definitely looked dead, and everyone talked about that for the next week or two. I kept saying, wait a second, what about Rick? Like, it looks like Glenn's dead. That's unfortunate. I like Glenn, but it looks like he's dead. But what about Rick? He's surrounded by walkers in an RV. Don't we care about Rick? Well, apparently we cared about him more than the writers do, because they never went back to that, and it's just lazy. So, as much as Walking Dead is some ass, sometimes it is some ass. I agree 100%. And Glenn does have 9 lives like a cat, and I'm sick of that too. I love The Walking Dead as much as the next guy, more than the next guy. And every time someone loses a limb, they're booted from the show. I think they're just not going to keep someone around that long whenever it takes special effects to cover up a limb. Herschel was an exception, because they kept him in the prison for a lot longer than I thought they would with one leg. But if you look at any of the behind the scenes, like, he's running around with a green screen thing on his leg. It's a pain. It's special effects. It costs money. So anyway, if you lose a limb, you're probably not going to be long for this show. But what I was saying is, I really love The Walking Dead. I enjoy the show because when it's great, it's phenomenal. But when it's bad, it's just so maddening, right? It's like, I don't get angry at the show because I don't like the show. I get angry at the show because I love the show and I want it to be good. And so when they do something like, here's the prisoners. Oh, we killed them all. I hope you weren't excited to hear some stories about how the prisoners were going to coexist with the group because we killed them all off. Here's the wolves. We're going to build. Here's the wolves. They're a big threat. Oh, well, they're gone now. Guess that wasn't a big thing. Like, oh, Rick's trapped in an RV. How's he going to get out? Oh, you know what? He found a way. It doesn't matter. We don't need to show that. Glenn, he's obviously dead. He's been devoured in front of this dumpster. Oh no, he scooted underneath it, and the guts that were like being strewn across his face were Nicholas's guts, and the walkers just didn't notice him. Like, listen, writers of The Walking Dead, just treat us with respect, right? We love the show. We're going to stick with the show through thick and thin. We've proven that. But I think that they need to give it at least as much thought as we have. Some type of conclusion. Okay, 2 good questions. Do I think Carl's a virgin? Yes, I think he's a virgin. Although that scene with Enid in the tree, maybe, he had some maybe tree action going on. I don't know. I missed the last one about, I think it said Beth and Maggie or Michonne. He definitely banged. I don't know. That's a deleted scene, and maybe for good reason. Your friend, thinks that his issue with the show is that it won't reach a conclusion. That's what this show's about. I think that The Walking Dead isn't about... No, it's okay. Thanks for speaking, a little bit of English. That's better than no English at all. Our friend from France. The Walking Dead is not about curing this walker disease, whatever it is. The Walking Dead is about these characters surviving in a world where everything they know is gone, and they have to rebuild, and they have to survive, and there are new threats. Enjoy the journey is the best advice you can give someone for The Walking Dead. Like season 1. I loved season 1 of The Walking Dead. It was only 6 episodes. My biggest issue with season 1 is the CDC at the end. Because when they go to the CDC, it goes from this survival story where these characters that are normal people, police officers, rednecks, housewives, kid, like whatever, these normal everyday people that they're trying to survive. It goes from that to, in the end of season 1 to, we're going to go to the CDC, and it becomes like a sci-fi channel type movie. It did feel like a movie, but it feels like they went from survival to sci-fi channel, like, let's go cure the zombie disease. And so I liked the CDC scenes, but it belongs in a different show. To me, the reason they never ever refer to the CDC is because it really doesn't belong in The Walking Dead, and it was a mistake for them to go there. And like in season 3 with Woodbury, where Andrea's there with Milton, and Milton is experimenting to see if whenever somebody comes back as a walker, there's anything left of their psyche. He's doing the little twirly thing on the bowl and seeing if the favorite music or pictures of family will remind them. It bugged me so bad that Andrea didn't just say, look, dude, we went to the CDC, We talked to a major scientist, and we saw there's nothing left of them because it's a big plot hole. What's appealing about these characters is that they're... Sorry, I missed your theory. If you can send it, I'll comment on that. We like these characters because they're normal people. They're you, or they're me, or they're the people down the street. And you or me or the people down the street never went to the CDC to meet with a major scientist to try to figure out what's going on with this world-destroying disease. It just does not belong in The Walking Dead. So, anyway. One of my issues with Season 1, but overall, Season 1 felt like a movie, and it was a very good movie. It's just the ending belongs in a different series than The Walking Dead. And The Walking Dead is about survival. And I love that now that we've met the Hilltop community, we're opening up the world. There are other people. We don't have to be so focused on just Rick World, just Alexandria. There are the saviors, and they're thugs, and they're going to, steal half your stuff and threaten to kill you, kidnap people. There's the Hilltop community, and there's a jerk in charge, but he, I guess, runs a tight ship, and he's being victimized, but we're going to help him because we need him. And it's you come from a family of preppers, so then you've probably thought about this. How would you survive? And Maggie kill Negan and Glenn. So your theory is that Maggie will kill Negan. I really like that idea. If it happens, it's going to be a long time because I think they're going to get a lot of mileage out of Negan. But there's something really appealing about the idea of Maggie being the one who kills Negan because you'd never suspect that. But not like you'd never suspect Carol because she's obviously a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like, Maggie's tough. She's a tough negotiator. And when she has a child, she's going to go into this super survival mode where it's not just about her own survival but her child's survival. So I really like that theory. I would be pleased if down the road we see something like that happen. What is it, Krav Maga? Is that the I'm sorry, I might not be pronouncing that correctly. That's the fighting style that Jesus knows. I don't really know much about Jesus because I didn't read that far in the comics, and I didn't read that far in the Bible. No, just kidding. Yeah, Jesus needs to hold fighting classes. How about Morgan and Jesus open a dojo? Think about that. Ultimate fighting. Another baby in this series. Okay. So as much as I like the moments where Glenn and Maggie and Abraham, they're all talking about babies. And everyone is baby crazy all of a sudden. And there's the sonogram, and it's like this symbol of hope in this world. Guys, we do not need another baby in this show. Right? We have Judith. She's a pain. She limits the story. At least now they're somewhere relatively safe in Alexandria, so like when Judith is not on screen, we just assume somebody's taking care of her. But yeah, when they were out in the woods with Judith, I'm like, oh, this is so bad for the story. And baby won't survive and will eat Maggie from the inside. That is dark. You have some dark theories. So, our friend here says that, I'm sorry, your names are so light colored I can't read the names. I want to credit that dark theory that the baby will not survive and will eat Maggie from the inside out. Well, the baby won't have teeth, presumably. So she's got that in her favor. That is a dark idea. Kudos to you. Kudos to you for going there. Okay, guys. It's been I've been on for 45 minutes. I intended to go 15 minutes. But I'm glad that you're talking. I love this. I love talking about The Walking Dead if you're on the East Coast of the United States like I am, it's your lunch hour, and I want to spend it with you guys every Monday talking about The Walking Dead, complaining about The Walking Dead, hypothesizing about what's going to happen. Will they ever attempt a manufacturing industry? I think they're building towards that. I love, you guys keep distracting me. I love that when they go to the Hilltop community, it's basically like what they say was a living museum. So you've got this historic mansion on the hill, and you've got like a little blacksmith's shop, and you've got all the assuming they have butter churns because that's what the olden times were like. That was such a great story element. I love that because naturally, if you have like something like that in your town, you're gonna think, hey, there's no electricity, there's no lights, no cars, no refrigerators, no ice cream. Let's go to that place and churn some butter, and let's be blacksmiths. So that's a natural. I love that part of the story. I think that's all from the comics. I think that the Hilltop community is pretty closely related to the comics, so can't really give the TV show credit for that. Yes, we'll try to make this a normal thing. There's a lot to talk about. There's going to be a lot to talk about. I'm placing bets. Abraham's next to go. I give him 2 episodes. I don't think he dies next episode. I think he dies the next episode after that. Is it strange that the Hilltop people have spears? I don't think so. They have a blacksmith shop, and if you have spears, it's a sharp thing on the end of a long stick. So if you want to kill walkers and not get bitten, a spear makes a lot of sense. The fact that not a single guard was standing up there with guns, even one that's unloaded, just to look more menacing, that's something I have a hard time believing. It's like, well, yeah, okay, so you have no ammo, you can't actually fire, but you stand at the top of the gate with a gun. It's a lot scarier than a spear. Anyway, I think I missed another good comment, but I'm sorry, and we will talk again. So thank you for joining. Jorge, you just joined. You missed. It was amazing. This was the greatest Periscope ever. Am I coming back tomorrow for the Flash? Beginning of this season, beginning of the seasons, we did a lot of Flash and Arrow shows, but I did that with my friend Pete, who was my CW buddy, and Pete went off to college. And so I haven't done any Flash and Arrow shows, but I like talking about Flash and Arrow. I think this went okay. This is the first solo Periscope, and so maybe we'll try a Flash and Arrow. And if we do, I usually do those on Wednesdays at around 5 or 6. Probably do it around 5, because that way you can talk about the previous night's Flash and what's coming up on Arrow. And in the meantime, good discussion. It's because you made it a good discussion. Otherwise, I would just be looking at my phone and looking at myself and talking to myself. That is not a good discussion. That is a scary discussion. So, in the meantime, follow us on Twitter. The general catch-all is at essential_TV, where all of our different show accounts get retweeted depending upon what's going on. There's Essential Dead for The Walking Dead. Please follow Essential Dead. We live tweet the show every Sunday. It's really fun. The jokes write themselves. And so I hope to see you on Twitter, and we'll be back here probably on Monday. I'll announce it Sunday night during The Walking Dead if we're going to do another Periscope next week. And it would probably be Monday at 1 o'clock. But if this is really a bad time, let me know, because it's only as good as the people watching. And if not many people can watch on Monday at 1 o'clock, we'll shoot for Monday at 5. I don't know, whatever. It's I like the Monday lunch hour thing. We're digesting the dead. So, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Keep on walking. Keep hope alive. Cross your fingers for Daryl, Glenn, Abraham, Maggie, Glenn/Maggie Jr., and everyone else in The Walking Dead, because Negan is coming. Natalie. We love you, Natalie.